All right, awesome. So we're going to get started. Thank you. My name is Ed Haslam. I'm from Conviva. I run marketing. I have good news and I have bad news. So the good news is I just started about 2 weeks ago. So you get to hear me do my first presentation. The bad news is I actually do know a lot about this space because I was at a company called Ink2Me back in the 90s and early 2000s that actually built ingredients for CDNs. In fact, that was back when AOL was the largest ISP on the planet. And they ran the largest reverse proxy cache on the planet, which was actually an Ink2Me reverse proxy cache. And that was back when Akamai and Ink2Me IPO'd at the same time. And the world was great until the early 2000s came. But I'm at Conviva now. And Conviva is an experience management platform for video. And what it does is it maximizes viewer engagement. So what does that mean? Conviva sees around 50 billion streams per year across about 10 billion viewer hours of video content on the internet or in OTT environments. So that's what we're looking at, is looking at metrics that drive engagement. And in the world of video or TV on the internet, OTT, engagement is viewing time. We're just trying to drive the amount of time people spend in front of the screen, right? And this talk is about monetization, and monetization is obviously directly correlated to viewing time, because the more time you're in front of the screen, the more time you're getting value out of your subscription, or in the case of advertising-based business models, and I came from a company called Yumi, which was video advertising, you're driving video ad impressions, which are growing faster than the display market in the internet today. So why does all this matter? Why does engagement and experience matter? It matters because we've been monitoring this. Conviva's been around for almost 10 years now. A lot of you out there are customers of Conviva. And we monitor experience. And experience means a lot of things. And in this case, in this particular example, we're looking at buffering. So 1% increase in buffering, or 1% change in quality of experience, over time has driven viewing time down. And in fact, it's getting worse over time. As of just last year, 16 minutes in viewing time related to a 1% increase in buffering. All right, so this is an exact mathematical correlation. It's showing that as quality of experience metrics change, engagement with your content changes, and therefore it affects negatively, obviously, your monetization. So that's all very logical, but what this means, though, also is you can build a formula. You can build an algorithm, if you will, to correlate that decline in experience to the impact on revenue. So it's network metrics directly correlated with business outcome, right? And that's what Conviva is in the business of doing, looking at that. And why does that even matter even more in the world of video publishing? Well, in the world of video, in the world of TV, the old maxim, content is king, your video library is what's the most valuable asset you have as a video producer or content producer. That was true in the world of a consistent delivered medium, in the world of cable, for example. But in the world of the internet, now you have to factor in experience. So it's content plus experience. So, and this is actually the first time this has happened since broadcast TV, right? I'm old enough now to remember, and I've actually now seen 2 generations with my father and now my son. I remember with my father watching TV, and when experience got bad, he got up off the couch, went over and started hitting the side of the TV and bending the rabbit ears, right? And then he changed the channel, regardless of how much we liked the show we were watching, because the experience pissed him off, right? Well, guess what? That didn't happen when cable happened. Went all through this time, and then my son growing up, he's experienced the exact same thing. I keep getting up and rebooting the router, right? I keep getting up and changing cables on set-top boxes, right? So he's having the exact same experience I had. And we're back to that world where the experience of the delivery medium isn't consistent, right? It's not a guaranteed quality of experience, which means that as publishers, you must now start measuring that. You must now start looking at that. So what does that look like? That looks like what we call an experience strategy. Build a strategy in your business to maximize experience. And you do that by correlating it to these experience metrics to engagement, right? And that's important because you will end up driving revenue, whether it's subscriber time, subscriber happiness, in which case you're reducing churn, or you're increasing viewer time by increasing the amount of ad impressions you're making available to your audience. So let's look at those in turn. So let's look at the SVOD business, right? The latest some industry research shows that by 2020, 1/5 of the SVOD market will be dedicated to recovering churned customers. It's $4.5 billion we'll all spend as publishers and network operators or whoever trying to recover people who left our services because we gave them a bad experience, right? Then look at this chart in a little more depth. Half of that was related to content. The content catalog sucked. I didn't see what I wanted. When I subscribed, I thought I was going to get access to this old show or vintage Gilligan's Island, and I didn't get it, right? And I'm mad. So I canceled my subscription. But half of that is because the experience was bad, right? Either the start time took too long, or it's buffering, or I'm seeing too many ads, some kind of experience that you guys as publishers and network operators can control. Right? At another conference, we can talk about quality experience, right? But this is about this $2 billion opportunity in SVOD to have a strategy to reduce that churn, reduce that lost revenue. Now, pivoting over to advertising, same sort of thing, right? But the world's a little different, and now you're looking at a trade-off, or what's in mathematical optimization is called an efficient frontier, right? So that's where you're looking at either maximizing the amount of content you're showing the viewer. So if I'm a publisher, or I'm a viewer, if I had my way, I would see 0 ads, right? I just want to see all the content. So give me all content, and that's the y-axis, right? The x-axis would be the publisher's world, right? Maximize the number of ads, right? And that's to meet publisher need for revenue. And in some cases, there are a lot of bad operators in the publisher world where it's a little more greed, right? Where they're just trying to get more ad pods in and more ads per pod, right? But in between those two extremes, there exists an efficient point, right? And you can find that efficient point if you are measuring experience. Because over time, as you increase the number of ads in a pod or where the pods are, and you measure experience and then you measure engagement, and then you decrease, you can find various points on that frontier. And you can graph them yourself as a publisher or network operator, and then find your ideal point. And your ideal point differs by publisher and content type, right? Because the amount of ads I'm willing to see in, let's say, a premium network broadcast TV show is way more than the number of ads I'm willing to see in one of my colleagues' YouTube video clips, right? So content does correlate a lot in this world as well. And that leads to this formula, or this look at the world, which is what we call your DNA, your audience DNA. Now, this is a little bit of a geeky chart, but let me try to go into it. So we've been talking about this notion of experience and measuring experience and experience metrics like buffering and video start time, fidelity of the experience, what was the bit rate, did it drop down too much so I had bad frame rate? And then you're correlating that directly to engagement, the amount of time people spent watching the video. Right? And that's what Conviva does every day, like I said, for 50 billion streams across all publishers. Right? But then finally, you can also map that to the audience that's viewing it. You can look at it by geography, by content type. You can combine that data with third-party data and start to look at like demo data in the world of advertising. Right? And you can understand and start to build models of what's the optimal experience I need to get to maximize my revenue for this particular audience. Because it's going to be different by show type, by time of day. It's going to vary a lot, right? And that's, again, the thing. There is no one-size-fits-all. There is no magic formula. You need to install and instrument your publisher infrastructure and or your network to measure this over time and to look at it over time and really understand the unique DNA. So let's look at these a little more in depth. So audience measurement, what do we mean? You can see, it's probably hard to read these back there, audience increasing or decreasing, your subscriber growth, your top content. You can look at the metrics that drive your business. that the business units at your publisher care about. Then you map those to these engagement measurements, which are the consumption patterns. What time of day is engagement or viewing time higher? What type of content, what type of viewer conversion am I seeing? Percentage complete in terms of how much of the video did I watch. And in advertising, that's also really important because you can actually measure each ad unit's efficacy as well. You can look at ad breakage, and you could look at what ad unit creatives are working better against different content types, so you can find the right ad mix by geography or viewer type, right? And again, correlating that back up to audience measurement. And then finally, digging down even further into these things about experience. So the three key areas that Conviva measures around experience that we think are critical are your startup times and startup latencies, right? Your interruptions, when did the video play stop? Did it buffer too much? Did the user suspend? And then obviously the fidelity. What was the bit rate? What was the resolution of the video? Did the subscriber find the video experience satisfying? So you don't know that directly, but if you measure it up and look at did they stop watching, and if that happens consistently across your audience, that at certain fidelity rates people stop watching, then you can directly correlate that as a cause and effect. Right? And you can build that model, and then you can flag your infrastructure to say, when I'm seeing bit rate fall below a certain level, do something about that, because I'm about to have a consumer experience problem or an engagement problem, and therefore I'm going to then have a revenue problem. Right? And then underneath all of it, this goes across all types of different geographies, all types of different networks. One of the unique things being an independent third party like Conviva is that we can measure this across all network types, all different types of publishers, so that you can look at different benchmarking. Because that's another interesting thing we've heard around the business of video, is really trying to understand how well am I actually doing against other people who are trying to do this as well, because this is hard. You know, delivering a high fidelity experience to consumers across a lot of channels, across all times of the day, and driving subscription revenue up or advertising revenue up on the internet's tough, right? So often we're asked, show me how I'm performing on some of my experience metrics relative to my peers, right? And these are things we call benchmarking in the industry. And we're just starting to look at benchmarks for these, so you can look and start to understand how is quality evolving and changing over time and experience, and therefore the business. And then finally, again, it's a formula. You can't just look at content anymore as it relates to monetization. Right? I know a lot of the talks today are about technology and the underlying infrastructure, and this talk's a little bit different. It's up another level. It's really trying to understand how does the technology affect the bottom line of the business. Right? And often in a content business, people think about monetizing audiences or monetizing content. Right? And what we're here to say is that as the underlying technology providers around either in the publisher's network or the service provider's network, you can actually impact that. You have the ability through direct cause and effect and correlation mathematically to drive the top line revenue or the top line loss of subscribers by running the business more efficiently from a technology point of view. But it's equally, if not more important in some cases than content, right? Because as I use that metaphor, I mean, my dad didn't care how loud I yelled when he changed the channel. He wasn't going to sit and watch that fuzzy channel. It just made him too angry, right? So content just did not matter. And it's got to be content plus experience. Thanks. Questions? Are you guys just being nice because I'm new? Or was I just that good? I'm just kidding. Yeah. No questions? Oh, there's one. Yes?
So since you can see all of this, tell us a little bit more about what's causing these problems. Is it the network? Is it the client? Is it the time of day? Is it sunspots? What is it that's causing this?
Yes. It's all those things. Right? It varies by network, by time. I mean, there's just so many different things that can go wrong on the internet or in the house. And you know what Conviva's ultimately doing is it's not trying to put attestation on any particular thing, right? It's trying to just say the consumer's experience is bad, right? And there are some diagnostics that we provide by ingesting the network topology that we can infer some possibilities, but really it's up to the people running the network to tell you what's really going wrong. But what we're doing is giving the insight to say, for example, I'm watching Game of Thrones last night at home, 2 hours after it aired on HBO Now, and it's buffering like no tomorrow, and my experience is bad. HBO wants to know that before I call in and complain, right? They want to maybe even send me a note, right? And I don't care what the problem was on the network. Really, all I care, and that's really all that HBO cares, is so they can reach out to me, and then after the fact, they can go and diagnose the problems on their networks. But really, we're about helping enrich the experience with the customer, with their provider. Great, thank you, appreciate it.